The golden hues of the late afternoon sun painted the city skyline as Lieutenant Colonel Victoria Hayes stepped out her car, her boots clicking against the pavement outside an upscale downtown bistro. The scent of freshly baked bread and simmering sauces filled the air, promising an evening of indulgence she had long overdue. After returning from a year-long deployment overseas, Victoria wanted nothing more than a quiet, satisfying meal, a moment of peace before reintegrating into civilian life. Victoria, at 48, exuded a quiet strength. Her mocha-toned skin, high cheekbones, and athletic build made her appear years younger. Dressed in casual jeans and a crisp white button-down, she blended seamlessly with the restaurant's sophisticated clientele. To the unknowing eye, she was just another patron. What they didn't see was her decorated career, her sacrifices, or the relentless discipline that had shaped her into a formidable leader. As she entered, the low hum of conversation momentarily paused. Victoria noticed a table near the large window, her preferred spot. The restaurant's interior was elegantly styled, its decor refined yet warm. A gentle melody of classical music played overhead, setting the perfect ambience. However, as Victoria moved to take her seat, a group of well-dressed patrons at a nearby table turned their eyes to her, their whispers carrying an unmistakable edge. A blonde woman in a sleek black dress wrinkled her nose slightly, leaning in to murmur something to her companion. A burly man in a navy suit smirked. Their eyes flickered with quiet judgment, but Victoria ignored them. It wasn't the first time she had encountered such attitudes, and unfortunately, she knew it wouldn't be the last. A waiter appeared, his face blank of any professional pleasantries. He held his notepad loosely, barely looking at Victoria. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone void of warmth. Victoria suppressed a sigh and maintained her poise. "A medium-rare filet mignon, roasted vegetables on the side, and a glass of your house red." The waiter scribbled her order down with disinterest and walked away without another word. Victoria leaned back, focusing on the view outside. She had faced more hostile environments in her military career than an unprofessional waiter and a handful of prejudiced diners. Minutes passed, then half an hour. Other tables, including ones that arrived well after her, were served their meals, their glasses filled and refilled. Victoria's patience thinned. She had learned to endure discomfort in the field, but in a restaurant where she was a paying customer, she expected basic respect. She caught the waiter's eye and raised her hand. He hesitated before making his way over, his expression impatient. "Yes." Victoria's voice remained steady. "I ordered almost 40 minutes ago. My meal hasn't arrived." "The kitchen is busy," he said, sighing dramatically. "You'll have to wait." Victoria studied his face, searching for any sign of professionalism. She found none. "I'd like to speak to the manager." The waiter's lips curled into a smirk. "You can leave if you're not happy. Maybe this place isn't for everyone." The insult was clear. Victoria's fingers tightened around her napkin, but she refused to be baited. She took a slow breath, steadying the anger that threatened to bubble up. "Get your manager," she repeated, her voice firmer. Before the waiter could respond, a uniformed officer at a nearby table stood up. His badge gleamed under the warm light, his holster prominently displayed at his hip. His square jaw was set, his eyes filled with suspicion as he approached. "What's the problem here?" he asked, his voice carrying an authoritative edge. Victoria turned her gaze to him, her expression unreadable. "I asked for the manager because my meal hasn't been served properly," she said simply. "That's all." The officer crossed his arms. "You causing trouble?" Victoria's brow arched slightly. "Asking for fair service isn't trouble." His lips pressed into a thin line. "I need to see some ID." Victoria's patience snapped. She met his stare, her voice calm but sharp. "I'm a customer, not a suspect. You have no legal reason to ask me for identification." The officer's eyes darkened. "I gave you an order." Victoria leaned forward slightly. "And I'm refusing because I know my rights." The air in the restaurant thickened with tension. The diners who had been sneering earlier were now leaning in, their expressions eager, almost entertained by the unfolding confrontation. The officer's hand twitched near his holster, and in an instant he unfastened it, his fingers grazing the grip of his firearm. "Stand up and leave," he ordered. "Now." A hush fell over the restaurant. Some diners shrank back in their chairs. The waiter gawked, his earlier smirk replaced with unease. Victoria, however, remained still. Her heartbeat was steady, her breathing controlled. Then, with measured movements, she reached into her bag and retrieved her wallet. She flipped it open, revealing her military ID. Lieutenant Colonel Victoria Hayes, United States Army. Her voice was unwavering. "I've served this country for over 25 years. Now tell me, officer, are you really threatening me over steak?" The officer's face drained of color. The badge number on her ID gleamed under the chandelier's glow. The arrogance in his posture melted, replaced by uncertainty. The restaurant murmured, a ripple of shock and realization passing through the diners. Victoria stood slowly, her presence commanding. "I suggest you rethink how you handle civilians, especially ones who have served to protect the very freedoms you're sworn to uphold." Before the officer could stammer a response, Victoria pulled out her phone and made a call. The room was so silent. Everyone could hear when the other end picked up. "Chief Daniel Roberts? This is Lieutenant Colonel Victoria Hayes. I have a situation you need to address." The officer swallowed hard, sweat beading at his temple. Within 15 minutes, the restaurant door swung open, and in walked the chief, his expression stern. Victoria's gaze remained locked onto the officer who had just tried to humiliate her. Justice was coming, and this time there would be no escaping the consequences. Less than 24 hours later, the officer was dismissed from duty following an internal investigation. The restaurant manager personally called Victoria to apologize and fired the waiter for his discriminatory behavior. A press conference was held where Chief Daniel Roberts publicly denounced the officer's abuse of power and reaffirmed the commitment to fair policing. Victoria attended the conference, but not to bask in any victory. Her message was simple but firm. Most officers serve honorably, but one act of prejudice can erode the trust we place in them. This isn't about one officer. It's about ensuring fairness and dignity for all. Her words resonated beyond the press conference, sparking necessary conversations across the city. Justice had been served, but the fight for equality and accountability was far from over, and Victoria Hayes, soldier and citizen, would always be ready to stand in its defense.